Welcome to day 6 of our journey down the road to the NBA trade deadline, a video series where I talk about a different trade every day leading up to the trade deadline. 2 weeks of daily content. Safe to say, I'm already tired because we're almost halfway through day 6. This is wild. So we're going to go back to something a little less star-studded here and potentially a little more realistic depending on who you ask. And we're going to go back to the Magic. Love me some Magic. There's a lot of pieces they can move. And while I do like a lot of these players, they have been plagued by injuries their entire career. So there's a lot of talk around this in and out of Magic spaces. Now, who do they trade with? Because I've already looked at Zach LaVine. I've had them a part of other trades that I don't think ended up making the list for this. I even had them in the OKC trade video, I think a couple of times. But there's one team I think that isn't a splashy trade, but is more of a solidifying trade. And we're going to go to the Raptors, who've been pretty trade happy this year anyway. Now I know maybe some of you are thinking if it's a name, it's Jakob Poeltl here, and God, no. No, just get that out of your mind. But I think there are things this trade can do for both teams. So if you look at sending Markelle Futlz to the Raptors, as much as I love Markelle Futlz and his story, injuries have plagued him, and it's a point that the Magic, either this year or next year, really going to have a solid guard. And if he's out even for a third of the year, that kind of destroys a lot of their chances, even if other guys are stepping up. And we're sending out Wendell Carter Jr. Now, Wendell Carter Jr. is playing great, but Goga Bitadze has really stepped up. And, he's maybe not as high scoring as Wendell Carter Jr., but he gets about as many rebounds, and he's a lot cheaper. So if you're really focusing on the development and kind of star power eventually that Paulo and Franz will have, maybe this makes a little bit of sense from a monetary perspective. Now, who are the Raptors sending back? Well, there are a couple of guys. Expiring contract in Gary Trent Jr., who honestly I wouldn't be super surprised if they re-signed, because he's a good scorer, and that's something that they've really lacked consistently this year at least. So you have a shooting guard, which doesn't necessarily take the place of Markelle Fultz, but you can plug him into a lot of the lineups that the Magic use, and add extra scoring, maybe space the floor just a little bit for Paulo. Now, of course, Franz being healthy helps that as well, and him getting his three-point shot back. But there's one more piece we can look at to add to this team that also makes the money work a little bit. And we're looking at Dennis Schroder. Now, people have opinions on Dennis Schroder, but I think Dennis Schroder can be good on this team, either as the starting guard or kind of dead splitting time with Anthony Black, if you want to focus on his development this year. He's experienced, he's been with a variety of different teams, but one of the things I think makes him really interesting in this role is he played this summer in FIBA with Moritz and Franz. Both of these players also had a lot of time on the floor alongside Dennis Schroder. So you have a little bit of a connection there, which doesn't necessarily tie to the rest of the team, obviously. But I think that is not something people are talking about. And if the Raptors are really looking at focused on getting a younger core, kind of developing them, not really considering this a winning year for them from a game perspective, I think this makes a lot of sense. An expiring older guy, or not older, but kind of aging out of where you want some of your stars to be. And you get Dennis Schroder, who effectively is going to be in a similar boat. I don't think he doesn't have a team option for next year, but he's 2 years, not that big a deal. And maybe by the time this contract wears out and ends, Anthony Black will be kind of where you want him as an organization. So yeah, you have a consistent point guard that, like I said, either runs things, maybe opens the game, doesn't close it, or vice versa, depending on the matchup. Has chemistry with Moritz and Franz, so he can work in either your first or second units. He can score as well. Not only can he create, but he can self-create and create for others. Then you have Gary Trent Jr., who is a good shooter, helps space the floor a little bit, maybe gets in your starting lineup, maybe your secondary unit. With all the injuries and stuff this year, the Magic have had very fluid lineups, so this could change a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if Gary Trent Jr. replaced what Gary Harris does effectively. And yeah, you have a much more solid team here. Now, the Raptors, obviously, Markelle Futlz, they probably aren't going to re-sign because they don't really need him, especially if they're focusing on Immanuel Quickley. But maybe they decide to take a flyer on him and say, maybe this is a reclamation project again, or he goes to free agency and goes somewhere that needs a guard. And Wendell Carter Jr. is right in the age range you kind of want for the rest of your core, so he can eventually replace Jakob Poeltl if you decide to go a little smaller. Not that Wendell Carter Jr. is small, but the way he plays is not a traditional big a lot of the time. But he ties in with Scottie Barnes, a little bit older, but still in that age range. You, of course, will eventually develop Redic. Then you have Immanuel Quickley. You also have RJ Barrett up here. So you're right in that kind of early to mid-20s range. And this is a team I could see being really good next year or the latter half of this year. But Magic fans, Raptor fans, NBA fans, let me know. Is this stupid? Is Dennis Schroder the worst fit in the world for the Magic? Or is maybe he a good, under-the-radar pick for them? Especially as would kind of foresee the Raptors wanting to get off of him. Or did the Magic stand pat with Markelle Fultz? Who knows? Anyway, thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for sticking through this series. I'll see you guys tomorrow.